These are the 4 SMSF hacks they don't teach you that can actually make you rich. That's correct, folks. These are the 4 ways your super can legally buy property. And no, I'm not talking about the dodgy WhatsApp gurus sliding into your DMs or all those dodgy buyers agents or property broker coaches that are coming to you and saying, hey, buy a property under trust, have unlimited lending. Those products are now long gone. I'm talking about legal hacks that's still available today that are so powerful they can literally turn your 9-to-5 super account into a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. And you know what, guys? The mobs in, I can't say their names, but they're the clowns in the suits over in because I don't want to get in trouble with this platform. But those lawmakers, wink, wink, right? They don't want you to know this. Because while you're stuck topping up your boss's retirement plan, the smart property investors, mostly my clients, are quietly using SMSF, which stands for self-managed super funds, to buy homes, shops, and even lease them back to themselves. That's right, guys. Welcome to the dark arts of retirement planning. So firstly, guys, let me give you a summary of what I'm talking about today. Because usually, these videos are pretty long. You're like, Q, get to the point. Yes, I know, I'm going to get to the point. I'll give you an overview summary of what I'm talking about today, right? If you're interested, keep investing the time to watch this video. If not, scroll away. I don't give a crap, right? So today, if you're ready, we're diving into the 4 ways Aussies are using SMSFs, which is a self-managed super fund, to stack wealth. I'm going to talk about, firstly, using loans inside super. And secondly, I'm going to talk about buying property debt-free inside super. And thirdly, guys, in-specie transfers. Yes, it sounds like some alien versus predator crap, right? But it's not. In-specie transfers, it's about moving a property in self-managed super fund into your personal name. And fourthly, the wildest hack ever, I do this myself if you're a small business owner. This is about leasing your business property back to yourself, and also known as an associated party lease. And those are the 4 things I'm going to talk about today. Just a bit of a disclaimer, guys. This video is going to go over 15 minutes. But if you're patient, if you have the time to learn this knowledge, man, you're going to be super powerful. And let me tell you, guys, I'm a different beast on this platform. They won't be like, oh, after this summary, no, I can't give you more info because you need to click on this link to input your email and then your mobile number. So then I can spam you and cold call you. No. There will be nothing like that. I don't do any of those charlatan property broker coaches or buyers agents out there. I won't do that because I will just give you this info. You do what the hell you want to with it. And if you like it, you can contact me. Otherwise, pee off. Anyway, guys, strap your seatbelts on. There will be no holding back in this information. And in today's video, I'll show you real client examples, how much they've made, and what you can legally do too on the A, Beep, O watch list. Right, I can't say their name, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The Grim Reapers that rip 35 or to 38% of your pay every single week so that they can fill up their pension funds. You know what I'm talking about, right? I can't say the actual word because I'm going to get censored, but you know what I'm talking about. Because as you guys have been loyally watching this channel, you know me, I always believe knowledge is power and it should be free. There should not be a paywall. Let's go, guys. Now, firstly, loans in SMSF. This is a supercharged growth strategy. And I'm going to show you the screen right now. Over here, guys, I'm going to show you a real client example. They've been working with me since 2016, and this happened in 2017. I'm going to show you what has happened from 2017 to 2025. Because when you're following me, I don't talk about get rich quick scheme or my client bought this in 12 months and they have 10 problems. There's bloody brokers try to get your money to pay for their property coaching, right? I'm talking about long-term strategy with practical, realistic results, okay? Anyway, guys, here's the hack. Yes, you can actually borrow in super, and it can be up to 70 to 80% with a limited recourse loan, which is a self-managed super fund loan. Now, moving back into this example, there's a client of mine, a property investor that, contacted me many years ago. He has a Maruka property in Queensland, bought in 2017 for $535,000 with a loan of $374,000, as you can see over here. Okay, and you might be running right now, what is it worth today? Well, if you're looking on the screen, it's now worth $750,000. And from 2017 to 2025, you can, if you do your maths, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, in the span of 8 to 9 years, there was a $215,000 uplift inside the SMSF. And according to Cotality, which is also known as CoreLogic before, they've said, quote, Brisbane dwelling values are up by 78% since the trough, end quote. However, a lot of you have heard other critics that say, quote, leveraging in super is too risky for mum and dad funds, end quote. But guys, before I get into the nitty gritty of that case study, I want to tell you, I don't do strategies that teach you how to get rich quick, right? This strategy, as you can see from 8 to 9 years of planning, it does involve some form of risk, which again is in proportion to rewards. So unlike those brokers out there, I'm not selling you a fairy tale. There's risk, there's reward, but most importantly, there is real examples. Let's go into this. In 2017, right, LRBA, which stands for limited recourse borrowing arrangement, this property was purchased. Let me tell you about the setup. In 2017, we have one of our clients who worked with our trusted buyer's agents. Yes, correct, guys. They use a buyer's agent. Don't get me wrong, guys. I don't hate all buyer's agents, right? Very experienced buyer's agents out there that don't just broker property, that use trust as their one-trick pony just to get clients to use their services to buy more property. These buyer's agents I use actually have a lot of experience, and they work with us hand in hand with our financial advisors and our accountants before suggesting these type of properties. And now, as you can look from this example from our independent financial advisor and working with these buyers agents, the client bought in 2017 for $535,000. And just to clarify a bit, guys, this is actually a unit, okay, not a house. When I mean a house, like a home, I mean a unit, okay, just to clarify a bit, because you can't find a house in Maruka back in 2017 for $535,000. No way. All right. So anyway, the SMS borrowed $374,500. Okay. Because it was a unit, we can only borrow up to 70% LVR. And the client had to chip in $160,500 equity from their super account. Plus on top of that, a bit of cost, as you can see over here. So just to go in detail, guys, it was $535,000, $374,000 for a loan. The rate back then was 6.34%. Right. The loan was repayment per year was this much. Rental income was this much. Property expenses were this much. There was a net cash flow deficit of minus $6,094. So again, guys, not a get-rich-quick scheme. This SMSF, which is held under a trust, a self-managed super fund trust, was not making positive cash flow. But back in that time, the yield was great. And to work out the yield, you just get the rental income divided by the market value of the property that you purchased for, which is the contract price. That works out to be 4.68% roughly rental yield. Okay. Now, as you can see, guys, as we're going through this example, and hopefully you have a coffee in hand, there's no rush to scroll to a next bloody video that you're watching, right? Pay attention, guys, right? Yes, there was a negative cash flow of about $6,000 that year, right? It's not sexy, but I'm telling you guys, SMSF players, they play the long game. And remember, guys, the rental income, which is this over here, only gets taxed at 15%, right? And remember, guys, if they sell this property in pension phase, when they declare retirement, zero capital gains tax. So as you can see, the growth over here, right? Maybe in the next 20 years when they retire, this might go up to $3 million. And all that profit, zero to the A beep O. Haha. So right now, if you're watching this screen and hopefully you're not lost, we're going to fast forward to 2025. The valuation now, as we valued it like last month, is $750,000. All right, I'm going to get rid of this, right? And the client was paying interest only, right? So we can set interest only loans for SMSF. The loan is only $373,000. And as you can see, due to the financial planner's advice and the accountant's advice, we prioritize flexibility. That's why we didn't put in principal interest repayments. And again, just to go through the numbers, it's now valued at $750,000. The loan's this much. The rate has gone up a bit, as you know, the bloody people over there in the bloody clowns in the grey suits have jacked up the rates, right? 6.74. Loan repayments have propped up. However, rental income has also gone up as well due to the tight vacancy rates in Queensland, right? Now, property expenses has also gone up a bit because, CPI and, inflation, $5,000. However, the net cash flow deficit is only $4,196. And as you can see, guys, from a reality point of view, the rent has gone up, the expenses crept up, and also the interest rates are higher. So right now we're close to the rent over here covering the repayments. But as you can see from this example, the expenses kept it slightly negative. So right now, as you digest this information, as you're sipping your coffee, I don't know what the heck you're doing right now while you're watching this video. Let's look at the growth math, right? I'm going to show you why leverage inside super can actually work even with these numbers. As you can see here, right? The market value is $750,000. This over here minus this over here, right, becomes this, okay? This is the potential capital gain. Now, in the next part of the screen, I'll show you how much equity they've acquired right now. how you work that out is you get $750,000 minus the loan amount owing, which is $373,000. That works out to be an equity now of $377,000. So as you can see, guys, the price growth went from $535,000 to $750,000. That's a $215,000 uplift. And if my math is correct in terms of the average calculation, the unlevered growth works out to be 4.3% per annum over 8 years since owning this property. And remember what I said about the contribution from the super to make this happen? Since we brought at 70%, right? There's a 30% contribution plus stamp duty. I remember I said it was around $160,000, but to be accurate, to include stamp duty, it was actually $187,250 contribution. Now, if you did your maths roughly, the return on the contributed equity from your retail super over 8 years, it works out to be 11.2% per annum. Now, if you're watching this and wondering, hey Q, how did you get 11.2%, right? Well, let me calculate this for you. I'm not making this figure out, right? So this is the calculation. So it's very complicated, but briefly, because I don't want to include this whole video to go through this math thing, but you can verify it yourself. You can even bloody ChatGPT yourself, right? So what I did was, this part was the contribution excluding stamp duty, and I'll include an example for stamp duty later, right? So what happens, the formula to calculate equity growth from super, right? You get the contribution plus the actual gain you got at that year that you plan to either sell it. Obviously through super, you don't plan to sell it, but you just want to work out where you're at, right? You get $365,500, right? And then you get that divided by your contribution, right? And then through this formula, which converts multiple to annualized returns, a CAGR, very complicated. I did 3-unit maths. You guys, I don't expect you guys to know, but just know from this equation over here, the contribution of 160K excluding stamp duty nets a 11.21%. In terms of an average, this is really good. It's performing well. Your money that you invested got an 11% return. All right. Now you must be thinking, hey Q, what if you included stamp duty? Because obviously when you buy property, you gotta bloody pay stamp duty. Yep, same thing, right? Through all that stuff, and this is a bit of the formula calculation, it works out to be 10% per annum in terms of return. All right. So this is just like, I'm not making crap up kind of thing, but, I don't expect you to go run those numbers. Obviously, you have an accountant, you have a financial advisor that do that. I don't do that stuff. Don't expect me to do that. I'm here just to show you that this strategy does work and to keep you on the same page of what I'm trying to say later on in this video. As you can see from those returns from 10 to 11% in regards to whether you include stamp duty in your calculation or not, there is cost involved in setting this up, right? So this setup wasn't free. The self-managed super fund actually carried a small annual deficit around $4,000 to $6,000 in these snapshots over here, right? So if you want to open a self-managed super fund to buy a similar property, do a similar strategy like this, don't get spooked, because actually in terms of expenses, it's a ballpark of $5,000 per year over 8 years in this example. So from the get-go of 2017 to right now 2025, this client paid in terms of expenses about $40,000. 5 times 8 is $40,000, right? However, as I showed you before, despite these carrying costs, your net gain is still pretty positive, from 10 to 11% of the original equity inputted. Now, guys, before I go on to the next segment in terms of the second strategy, I want to give you a bit of a checklist to look out for when you're planning to set up a SMSF strategy to buy a property. And I throw it in the screen over here. Here's the checklist. You need a separate bare trust custodian for the LRBA, which is limited recourse buying arrangement, right? And remember, guys, when you buy a property in SMSF, it needs to be arm's length. You can't lease it to your mum and dad, your brother and sister. You can't go and live in it, right? So everything has to be arm's length, guys, right? There must be no personal use, investment only. And remember, guys, when you buy a residential property, it must be a single acquired asset. You can't buy and then do house and land packages, constructions, duplexes. You can't renovate or improve this asset. It must be something that is set and forget. You can repair and keep it up to a rentable aspect of it, but you can't go and build a grand flat after buying under SMSF. So before I wrap this first strategy over, I want to tell you guys, leveraging inside super is not for cowboys, right? Don't be a cowboy, because that's what happened in 2017, 2018. All the major banks were doing SMSFs, and all the bloody cowboys, like all the bloody BA and brokers and accountants or financial planners who are selling lending under trust, which got it cancelled at the moment. Those bloody cowboys are coming back. Don't be a cowboy with SMSF. It's very regulated. And I'm telling you right now, before you set one up, you need the right structure. Everything needs to be arm's length, and you need to buffer in liquidity in your super fund. For example, if you had like $200,000 in your super fund, you can't just use $200,000 into a deposit to buy a property. There needs to be a bit of liquidity, a bit of buffer for this remaining money to pay for the expenses every year. And most importantly, you need to know your North Star. When is your pension phase? How do you calculate your capital gain growth? And is your accountant and financial advisor who's doing this for you keeping records for you? If not, you're going blind in this type of strategy. So guys, before I go on to the next strategy, my take on this is SMSF is very complex. If done wrong, you're going to blow up your retirement, man. But if done right, your compounding growth in a TAX environment, which is capped at 15%. Whilst if you did the same strategy, buy in your personal name or buy under a trust, which, for example, is going to be a fairy tale very soon, it's going to be gone. But anyway, if you're buying outside super, that same capital growth would be chewed alive by the AXO, if you know what I'm talking about, the bloody clowns in the suits. But right now, you guys must be crossing your arm going, I don't like debt. And I know that not every client likes to take on debt inside their super. So right now, let me talk about the cash buyers. And you might be thinking, Q, what's in it for you? If there's no debt, there's no commission. That's right, guys. There's nothing in it for me, but there's a lot in it for you where you can be a cash buyer and use strategy number 2. And with the help of our independent accountants and independent financial advisors, this is also one way to use super to retire rich. And yeah, it doesn't even benefit me. But hey, I believe in ending the generational poverty curse in your family, so keep on watching. In the second part of this video, we're going to talk about no loan in SMSF, the slow burn, and I'll take you through a case study, okay? So over here, we're going to look at no loan in SMSF, which I call the Philip ACT purchase case study, all right? And I know some clients prefer playing the long game, the debt-free game. But again, guys, this is for people who have a lot of money in SMSF. So you have less than $200,000 or even less than $300,000. This is not you. But if you want to be like this person, this is a good example to aim for. All right. It's a very small purchase, by the way, and it can be doable if you have about, maybe 350 to 400 in there. Okay. In this example, the property is in Phillip, ACT. It's a unit bought in 2018, as you can see over here, for $305,000. All right. And there was no loan. It's just cash from the SMSF fund, which got created by their financial advisor and their accountant. Okay. And as you can look at today, as we did a review also this month, we always do an annual review with our client. The property is worth $405,000. Okay. And as you can see from over here to here, there was exactly $100K tax-friendly uplift without the sleepless nights about rate rises. Now, to quickly quote an industry super fund spokesperson, quote, superannuation tax concessions cost $50 million a year, end quote. And for those of my clients who are property investors who are supporters of using SMSF funds, they say, quote, that's not a cost. That's future retirees not clogging up the pension system, end quote. But guys, enough of me blabbering on. Let's get to the case study, all right? So here's the setup, guys. In 2018, the SMSF, the self-managed super fund, buys a unit for $305K. Now, obviously, you can't do it right now, but you can do it for similar properties, maybe around 400 or 500 these days, right? I don't know. But as you can see, there was no loan, okay? And the client is getting about $19,760 per year in terms of rental income, all right? And if you work out the rental yield for this, you simply get $19,760 divided by 305. They were getting 6.47% in terms of rental yield, okay? And all this is only taxed at 15% maximum tax rate because it's under their SMSF. And in terms of running costs, guys, again, from that previous example in over here, it doesn't carry such a big running cost, but this one was around $4,000 a year. Okay, this is from the financial planner and accountant's feedback. Okay, and the net cash flow surplus every year was $15,760. So as you can see, guys, from day one, there was income, no lender, no rate rises, and no mortgage contracts. And as we swing over to 2025, as you can see over here, right, in green, It's now worth $405K based on a recent valuation. Still no debt, right? However, the rental income has lifted to $22,808 per year. Now, the net cash flow, this minus this, is now $18,808 per year. Also taxed at 15%. But however, because this is a 7-figure strategy, the client has seen a 100K uplift. Now, again, guys, doing the same maths as before that I showed you before with all these complex calculations, this works out to be over 7 years in terms of the cash contribution. He has been netting a 4.1%, and I'll put it on screen, per annum unlevered growth over the 7 years. This is actually a solid and low stress compounding capital return inside a concessional tax strategy. And let me further throw this on screen. The client right now is in the accumulation phase, right? Which means they're accumulating property before they hit the pension phase, which way they start to sell up property, right? Or they just keep it to get a allocated pension, right? During the accumulation phase, the fund pays 15% on the net rental income. So if you do the maths properly, the take home to the fund was roughly $13,400 per year. But that was back in 2018. Yes, of course you can see this, but this is before tax. But in 2025, roughly, it's about $16,000 per year. Obviously, this is the gross, but after tax from the 15% tax and all these deductions that you can offset from the profit, they get $16,000 a year after tax. And if this keeps going on in terms of the accumulation phase down to their, for example, their pension phase, right? The tax, which is the 15% tax, drops to zero. That's right. You no longer need to pay tax when you hit the pension phase, which turns this income, which might be projected to maybe about 30K per year, right? Just from this measly 300K investment into a tax-free income stream in retirement. Now, in the next following screen, I'm going to talk about why this strategy works, right? And who it's for. So I'll throw up on the checklist. It's for people that don't want the risk on the rates increasing. They don't want to deal with a bank. They don't want to get into any debt, right? And from start one, there's an immediate positive cash flow to the fund. Obviously, you're going to pick the right property and obviously it has to be tenanted, but in this tight vacancy environment, easy peasy. In terms of administration, there's no LRBA. There's no limited recourse buying arrangements, right? There's no SMSF buying arrangements because there's no loans. So the admin is very cheap in terms of tax administration, very cheap for your account as well. But then again, it depends on how much your account charges per year. I don't know. In terms of tax efficiency, 15% on the income in the accumulation phase, as I've shown you in this example over here, right? And 0% tax on pension phase. And let me put it a disclaimer. This needs to be within the income caps. And the reason I'm saying that because this is bordering on financial advice and tax advice. So speak to your accountant, speak to your advisor to clarify all this information. So this begs the question, who is this for, Q? It's for the conservatives, the pre-retiree clients. For example, I have a lot of people who come in and book a call with me. Sometimes I suggest to them, not financial advice, but for me being in their best interest and not me trying to grab the loan and get the commission and all that crap, right? Because I don't really care. I've got a ton of business coming through. I'm here to build reputations, not a loan book, right? So right now, in terms of this strategy, we have a lot of people, for example, they're in their 50s. Their combined super is around, 380 to even 450. They can actually do this strategy, of course, with financial advice and independent financial advice, right? And this could be a very risk-averse way to get a debt-free property. So in most cases, you can sleep well. And also after that, you might build a second property under super, because I have clients that have over $1 million in super and it's just sitting there doing nothing. And again, guys, please remember, as per this option, which is lending to a super with a loan, to buying property with no loan in terms of the second option over here, they both carry the same requirement under the SIS Act, which stands for the Superannuation Industry Supervision Act, right? Again, it needs to be arm's length, no family members. But the difference in terms of the property in an SMSF without a loan though, but those of you guys that want to tinker with the property and all that stuff, in the second scenario, the second strategy where you do not use a loan, which is an LRBA, limited recourse borrowing arrangement, right? You can renovate a property in SMSF that has no LRBA, which means no lending from any banks, right? Again, guys, this is not financial advice, but it is a key difference. You can make renovations that do not change the character of the property, and the funds trusted allows it. So speak to your accountant about it, all right? So that is the difference. So yeah, guys, you can add that as a perk to buying property in super with no loan and just cash. So right now, as you're watching this video, I'm going to the third strategy. I might split this video into part 2 because it's getting kind of long, because I don't want to rush it because it's very complex. We need to keep it very compliant and we need to keep it safe. Okay, I don't want to rush things, so I'm gonna have broken this video into part 2. So in part 2,
don't worry, part 2 is coming. Just jump into the comment section, type in part 2, comment part 2, and I'll release it soon. I'm going to talk about in-specie transfers and leasing your business property back to yourself legally.